All right. So the NFL draft happened the other week, and I am here joined by Sam. Sam, how are you?
Hey Jake, I'm all right. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for asking. And we're gonna cover the NFL draft. We're gonna cover the winners. We're gonna cover the losers. We're gonna cover, the top 10 draft picks. Who we think are going to steal snaps from maybe those veteran guys on
hmm
the team. So let's start with the winners real quick. Sam, just list like three wingers for us real quick. Who you got?
I'm not because I haven't done through everything, but two of them were my two highest graded draft classes. I had the Steelers was my highest graded draft class, and the Eagles was my second highest graded draft class. Um, Now I haven't done every team yet, but I know I really, really like the Giants draft class.
Hmm.
Um, the depth on it was a little shaky. We can get into it later, but their first four picks were stacked. So those are just the first three off the top of my head, but not official or anything yet.
I think I said this on draft night. Jalen Hyatt, they drafted my boy out of Tennessee. So,
That's your
you know,
boy.
um, the three winners of the draft I had were the Green Bay Packers. They got
Oh,
weapons for Jordan Love, which they needed. Um, I think I think you touched on my other winger, the Philadelphia Eagles. They got what they needed. I guess you can call them the Georgia Eagles, I guess,
yeah.
since they got four defensive players from this year and last year draft on Philadelphia. And then my other
hmm
wing is the Chicago Bears. I mean, they did what they needed to do. They built around Justin Fields, and we'll see how that plays out. But let's get into
Yeah.
some losers. What do you think?
I haven't fully gone over that. One of my losers, I'm not saying it's bottom three graded, but they are a loser. Ironically, the Green Bay Packers. Um, I wasn't a big fan of just the value they got. I think, and what some people don't realize when I'm talking about team draft classes, just because I don't like the value they took on a player doesn't mean I don't like the player. Like, I think
Mhm.
Jaden Reed could absolutely be a stud, but I just think they reached maybe like a round or so on him. And then another one
Yeah.
of my losers were the Lions. They got Jameer Gibbs and Jack Campbell in the first round. Two very good players. I had them graded as top 50 prospects. But first off, I think they reached a little bit. And second off, those are not valuable positions. Running backs and linebackers, like stacked ones, they can be found throughout the draft. I had like 20 running backs with like draftable grades. So you can find good running back prospects throughout the entire draft. So taking one at 12 was a little high for me, especially one like Jameer Gibbs, good player. They reached a little bit. And then my last one I had was the Jets. I really hated the Will McDonald pick. That was my only first round pick that I graded an F. Um, I I don't think he's a horrible player. He just lacks like functional strength to
Yeah.
be a down to down player. And I think drafting a situational player top 15 is horrible. So that's just the three I had off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think they really reached for Jameer Gibbs, especially since Bijan Robinson went at number 8 to Atlanta. The Lions had the sixth overall pick, the trade that bounced around and eventually ended up to the Cardinals where they picked Harris Johnson Jr., which great pick
Mm-hmm.
by the way. Great pick.
One
But
more, one more loser I
okay,
forgot was the Buccaneers. I
yeah.
If you follow my account, Fair Catch NFL, you know I'm notoriously low on Kalijah Cansey. I think he's another one of those like situational players. He can be a
Hmm.
good situational pass rusher, but I don't think he can play three downs at a time. So I think their draft was fine, but because I like the Cody Mach pick, I think that was a decent
Yeah.
pick. But just the Kalijah Cansey pick was just bad enough for me to have them as a loser.
I think the Buccaneers are trying to build around Kyle Trask. I think they're trying to make this experiment work.
Is it
What do you
not?
think?
Is Baker Mayfield not the QB one?
Um, is
I
Baker
mean, it's
Mayfield in
at this
Tampa
point,
Bay?
it's
Yeah,
whatever.
he's in Tampa Bay.
At this point,
He's
it's
in Tampa
whatever.
Bay.
They're both not the best options.
I mean, yeah. They're trying
I
to make
I would
whatever
go.
work, I think.
Yeah,
I
I would
think
go
they're
with
just
Trask
trying to
just
make
because
whatever
he's
work.
younger.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, what I was saying about the Lions is the Lions, they had the sixth overall pick. If they would have
Hmm.
stayed there, Bijan Robinson would have fell to them at six. They could have
Yeah,
stayed at six and taken Bijan Robinson. Now let's get
yeah.
into some guys who we think might steal some snaps from veterans. I think I covered it a little bit with Bijan Robinson. I think he will be getting to steal snaps from Cordell Patterson, maybe become that running back two in Atlanta. What do you think about that,
Hmm.
Sam?
Um, yeah. Also, Cordell Patterson, I think he's a good player. He's just in his if he's not in his 30s, he's nearing his 30s, and the running back shelf life is pretty short. Um,
Hmm.
and I just think Bijan is like transcendent enough of a talent to take snaps from anyone. Now, the RB2 in Atlanta will probably be Tyler Algier, the running back out of BYU. I think they
Yeah.
grabbed him in like the fifth round or something last year. He just rushed for 1,000 yards. His season has gone pretty under the radar. He's a hard runner, excellent contact balance. He's kind of slow, doesn't offer too much in the receiving game, but he's the guy who I think most of the snaps will be taken from. But Bijan is good enough to, unfortunately, the snaps will have to be taken.
Yes, they will have to be. Let's get into maybe a quarterback here. At number four, the Colts took Anthony Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
They really don't have a quarterback situation in Indianapolis. I think Anthony
Yeah.
Richardson comes in day one and is a starter for this team. What do you think about that?
Um, I'm not sure because Anthony Richardson, he's played very limited starts in his college career. Off the top of my head, it's like 13 maybe. Now, you drafted him high enough and he's athletic, so he might be able to run around, win a couple games for you. But if it's me, I'd let Gardner Minshew is actually the guy in front of him, if I'm not mistaken. I let Gardner Minshew ride it out just for a couple weeks until it it kind of falls apart, which eventually it will, because Gardner Minshew just isn't won't be the answer at quarterback. But I would like to give Anthony Richardson a couple of weeks to adjust. Maybe get him in there in some sub packages, even when Gardner Minshew's the starter. Get Richardson in there every now and then. But I'd like to see him sit for a little bit.
Hmm. Now let's maybe talk about the second overall pick, CJ Stroud. He comes in here day one and is the starter for the Texans, I believe. The Texans got David Mills and I forget whatever quarterback they got. But I mean, CJ Stroud is obviously the better option, I think, no matter what. Um,
Yeah.
but let's talk about Bryce Young. Obviously, impressive career at Alabama. Um, he the Panthers have always come out saying they're not going to rush Bryce Young into the starting role.
Mm-hmm.
Um, however, I think he's talented enough to come in and be the starter. What do you think about the whole situation with that, Sam?
So I saw a report saying uh Andy Dalton said he was told that he's the guy heading into training camp. Now, I'm sorry, Andy Dalton, but I think they're lying to you. Um, now Bryce
I
Young, I
think
have
Bryce
him as
Young may
graded as
be a little bit better than Andy Dalton.
just a little bit.
Just a little
Now
bit.
I'm not going to disrespect the Red Rifle. I think he had a good career in Cincinnati, but right now he's just not the
Oh yeah.
guy. I think that might just be like a smokescreen type, or like we want to make him earn it. You know how teams say sometimes. But eventually, come week one, I bet Bryce Young will be the starter in Carolina.
Now let's talk about the steal of the draft. We all know the steal of the draft to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oddly
Darnell
enough,
Washington,
Darnell Washington. Let's talk about
that's
Darnell
your boy.
Washington for a minute.
That is my boy. I had him graded as the 10th best player in the class, and they got him at what, 93? So I heard
Yeah,
there was concerns that I didn't know about, concerns about like, I forget what it was, but he had some injury concerns. Um, and also, as a Darnell Washington truther, I've loved him through the whole process. I feel like me and you have already talked about this. Um, it's unfortunate to see him land in a spot like this because they already have Pat Fryermuth, who they just a couple of years ago invested a second in. He's been a very solid player, like top 8 tight end, top 10 tight end in the league, maybe. So I don't know if he'll steal too many snaps from him at first, but I do think Washington's good enough to come after year one, year two, he'll end up start stealing snaps from Fryermuth, and the Steelers will realize that they have their guy in Darnell Washington.
I want to talk about my guy that the Bills took in the first round, Darlington League. That's a nice
Yeah.
steal. Um, will Darlington take steal snaps from Dawson Knox though?
Um, I mean, short answer, maybe. uh, I think I would love to see Dalton Kincaid play as like a big slot. I think he has the skill set to do that because we all know Kincaid really can't block anyone. I like him as a player. He just can't block anyone. They could put him down in the slot, or they could run some 12 personnel or big 12 personnel, uh, two tight ends, one running back. Um, so I think overall he might steal a couple of snaps from Dawson Knox because he might end up just taking the traditional tight end role. But Dawson Knox fantasy stock will go down a lot because all the tight end targets will go to Kincaid. So
Darwin
I see what you're
Kincaid.
saying there.
Yes. Yes. Because Darwin Kincaid was that pass catcher. He was that route runner at Utah. He's everything you
Yeah,
want in the tight end if Darnell Washington was not there.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I didn't necessarily get to my losers. There is one loser I want to talk about in particular, and I was under a lot of fire for this. Maybe it's maybe it was justifiable. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know what. But you know, one of my losers I got is the Atlanta Falcons. Um, I really think they need to get a wide receiver for Desmond Ridder this year. I think they really
Mm-hmm.
need to. I had them taking Jackson Smith Najee at number 8. That might have been too high for a wide receiver. I don't. Sam, do you think it was justifiable file I was under, or what do you?
I think I think they had a like okay draft class. I Now the Bijan pick, it was a running back. I already kind of talked about this with the Lions. You can't really pick a running back top 10, but Bijan is just so good. So, and Arthur Smith, he's their head coach now. I'm a Titans fan. He used to be the Titans offensive coordinator when we had that awesome offense in like 2019. He's going to work wonders with Bijan Robinson because Henry had his 2,000-yard season under Arthur Smith. So I actually kind of like that pick. Um, and the Jackson Smith and Jigba, I'm a little lower on him. I think he's a fine player. I just don't think he's as good as some people make it. I had him as my wide receiver too, behind Jordan Addison. And
Mm,
then second round they took Matthew Bergeron. I think
yes,
he,
the offensive
I
tackle.
think he's yeah, I think he's listed at tackle, but I have a hard time
Mm,
seeing him play tackle. He'll probably start at guard and then take over for Jake Matthews after a couple years. Um, and then Zach Harrison, they took in the third. I didn't think that was a very good pick. And then Clark Phillips was, I believe, the next pick. That was a really good pick. He's really small. Give him like 2 more inches to his frame and his wingspan. I think he probably would have been a first round pick. So I think that was a steal. Uh, so they had some like questionable picks where they may have reached a little
yeah,
bit, but overall, I don't think they're losers. But I see where you're coming from.
yeah. That's that. We'll see what happens. So final thoughts going into the season. How do you think it will play out, and who do you think is going to be the best rookie from this class?
Best rookie. Ooh. Well, short answer is just going to be Bijan Robinson. He'll probably win Offensive Rookie of the Year. But some guys that I like as underdogs, Jordan Addison. I think he steps into
Hmm.
a really nice role with Minnesota. I think he's a fantastic player. And then all the attention because they're a pass heavy offense with this new pass heavy offense they got with the new head coach. Um, Justin Jefferson will consistently be double teamed. And
Oh yeah,
outside of Justin Jefferson, there's really not many options up the because Dalvin Cook might be released soon. TJ Hawkinson has been disappointing, if I'm being honest. And I believe their second receiver right now, or before the draft, would have been KJ Osborne, who's like a fine 4 or 5 receiver. So Jordan Addison, I think he could get opened up down the middle of the field. I really like him. And then Quentin Johnston, who I'm a little lower on as a player, but I'm really high on his situation with the Los Angeles Chargers.
yeah.
The Chargers, my problem with their offense under it was Lombardi, I believe, was the offensive coordinator. They just brought in Kellen Moore from the Cowboys. So I believe they'll start to air it out more down the field. That was the biggest problem with their offense because Justin Herbert,
And Justin Herbert could definitely air the ball
he
out. Um,
he can air it out, man. Because
he can definitely air it out.
they were having him throw underneath routes and out routes like all the time because that's just how Keenan Allen plays. And Mike Williams couldn't stay healthy. So I think Quentin Johnson could immediately step in, be the wide receiver one, because both those guys can't stay healthy anyways. And he could be a down the field threat for Herbert. So I really like him as well.
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, I think the best rookie when this class is said and done, I think maybe the best rookie this year will be I think I gotta go with Jordan Addison. You were talking about Justin Jefferson being double teamed. So most of those throws will go to Jordan Addison. I think
Yeah,
he'll eventually win Offensive Rookie of the Year. So
he
I
has a good
kind of
chance.
disagree with you on Bison. Even though that was a great pick, don't get me wrong. I think Bison will have a great season in Atlanta. I think Jordan Addison will win it. So
Yeah,
um, so Sam, we appreciate you coming on. We appreciate you talking NFL draft with us, and we'll see how it works out in the season, man.
yeah. Pleasure coming on. Thanks for inviting me, Jake.
Thank you.